All right, this is Travis Wayne Goodsell, continuing on with the Constitutional Government video lecture series. And I was supposed to do the peacefully assembling, but then I remembered that there's more to freedom of speech, and that's freedom of expression. It's not in our Constitution. It's not in the Bill of Rights. It wasn't added as an amendment as it should have been. But it's a Supreme Court decision that freedom of expression is to be considered free speech. And so I'm going to discuss that one. So this is part 5. All right, freedom of expression. This solely has to do with nudity and sexual behavior. And so even though the Supreme Court has said that nudity and sexual behavior are not criminal, nevertheless, that hasn't stopped states and police from considering it a crime for being naked or having sex. It is primarily a result of Playboy magazine and Hustler magazine and the lawsuits that involved those companies and their right to publish. The Supreme Court came down in favor of both companies on the matter, yet there are still many places that ban those particular magazines and others that have followed in their wake. Utah, for example, bans the selling of adult magazines as best they can. Utah County is more successful in banning it than Salt Lake County. Salt Lake County, however, has been able to zone it. There's been a magazine store that has been in operation, and it has resulted in many raids, yet nevertheless they continue to operate, or have. I don't know if they're still in business. They probably aren't, because magazines have done away with the rise of the internet. But Utah has altered their laws to prevent adult entertainment from being within a certain number of feet from schools and churches, and then retroactively go up against these businesses that sell adult magazines and such. Yet nevertheless we still have the Blue Boutique, an adult novelty store and clothing store. The core of the problem has to do with what I referred to earlier with the evangelicals. If you remember back to that video, I discussed how in the early 1900s they tried to make it legal for creationism to be taught in the school systems. Supreme Court said no, and so they went on a rampage and came up with all sorts of idolatrous paranoia and fear tactics to scare the populace in an attempt to try to control their behavior. That's what religion gone wild does. They try to control people's behavior and actions. And one of the attempts that they were successful in was changing the definition of pornography to refer to nudity and sexual behavior. Pornography is composed of two Greek words, but back in the days of Greece, pornography was never utilized as a word. Porn was used, graphy was used, but not pornography. And so it was evangelicals that took it upon themselves to alter definitions to create a problem where none has existed before. And what you get is a fear and a paranoia over sexuality and sexual behavior in the human body. And now we have body shaming and eating disorders and lack of sex education, all thanks to the evangelical movement. So thanks, guys. And the whole thing comes from the Torah, the book of Genesis, about the creation of man. God created Adam and Eve naked. It says so right in the book. They were naked and they weren't ashamed. And then a snake came into the garden, had Eve eat the forbidden fruit, even though it's not really forbidden, but that's their interpretation. Christian interpretation, Jewish interpretation, Mormon interpretation, Islamic interpretation, blah blah blah. But nevertheless, as the story goes, Eve takes of the fruit and then gives it to Adam, and he eats, and all of a sudden they recognize they're naked. Wow, knowledge. I'm naked. And then God comes into the garden, notices they're naked. And oh, well, we gotta cover them up now. They're naked. And gives them loincloths. That's the translation of the Hebrew word. And so they're both wearing panties, loincloths, thongs, whatever you want to call it. And so the woman is topless, mind you, but they don't mention that. They just say that they're given loincloths. And all is better, because now they are concealing their nakedness, and life can go on. And so that's the origin of the paranoia over nudity and sex. And it's interesting to point out that the very first commandment that God gives to Adam and Eve, when they weren't ashamed, is that they're supposed to have sex and fill the earth with humans. And yet somehow people got it all twisted around to think that nudity and sex are shameful and disgraceful and what's the word that the courts use? Indecent. That's the word. And so people get arrested for indecent exposure. Here in Utah, there was a problem at a pub called Broovies. Broovies is a place that serves alcohol, and they show movies. And they showed the movie Deadpool. And somebody who was there that night got offended, reported it to the police, and the police tried to get them in trouble and tried to shut down Groovies for showing Deadpool in a place where people are able to buy alcohol. And because in Utah, nudity and sex are shameful and disgraceful and indecent and horrible and sin and blah blah blah, even though we're born naked. Child porn at birth. But Groovies won their case and was able to shut up Utah and have Utah leave them alone. And as celebration, they showed Deadpool again. Good job, guys. Yeah, Utah County doesn't even allow Cosmopolitan or any other woman's magazine on their grocery store or other store magazine racks at the checkout counter. That's how paranoid they are in Utah. And it's just disgraceful. You know, if the Supreme Court says that nudity and sexual behavior are not criminal behavior, the states have to follow suit. Remember, I pointed out from the Constitution, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and any other laws rendered from it. So the Supreme Court decision is part of the laws that all states are supposed to adhere to. And yet we see over and over again the inequality that is performed in each of the states to ban, censor, deny, restrict, zone, blah, 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 anything they can for human rights. And I pointed out in one of the other videos that Ogden, I believe, is the city that's the highest per capita for teen STDs and for teen pregnancies. And Utah is the highest per capita of women on depression medication. And so when religion interferes with society, it destroys society. It messes everything up. It causes chaos. It causes crime. It causes abuse. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in Utah has been under attack by groups defending LDS youth because bishops have been sexually interrogating children for worthiness interviews, as they call it. And that's just not right. You know, there are too many cases, one after another. I mean, you've got a society who is paranoid about sexual behavior. So parents are not teaching children about sexual behavior. And as a result, bishops are asking these kids about whether they are committing certain sexual behaviors. And these kids are like, what? What is that? I don't know what that is. And they're going home telling their parents, of course, and their parents are getting upset. You know, this is a religion. And then, of course, I've told you about and you've heard about the 300 Catholic priests in Pennsylvania who were involved in sex trafficking of their choir boys. You know, religion has got to put on the brakes. You got to back off. You got to chill out. Get a grip on yourselves. I remember back in 2012 or something, there was a news story. I think it was a city in Vermont. I can't find the news story, so I can't verify, but the city passed an ordinance allowing women to go topless if they wanted. So, okay, whatever. But, yeah, it's not a crime to be exposed or to expose yourself. But we're in a Me Too movement where unwanted sexual advances are crimes. It's a crime to rape a woman. It's a crime to force yourself upon a woman, or vice versa. And we have a Supreme Court nominee who's being accused by numerous people as being a sexual predator. And not just a predator, but an orchestrator of sexual deviance. And that's just not right. But at the same time, I'm kind of confused because I hear the stories from Me Too, and they talk about how, oh yeah, this guy invited me up to a hotel room, or he invited me up to his apartment for a drink, and then he wanted to have sex, and I was offended, and I tried to run away, and I couldn't, and I didn't know what to do. I was in shock. And seriously, did your moms not teach you? I can understand Mormons, because Mormons don't teach their kids, but others? Did your mom not teach you? Did your dad not teach you? Your dad is paranoid about you starting to date because he knows what he did as a teenager. So why aren't they teaching you? And in my life, I have been victimized by women trying to set traps for me. And, they invite me over to their home or apartment, and they're wanting to pursue making out, and I'm like, no, and then come to find out that rumor gets spread around that she and I are in a relationship. I'm like, what? No. She invited me over to watch a movie. And so, yeah, I wasn't taught, so I had to find out the hard way. But, women are predators too. And when women want to get married, they pull out all the stops to make sure that the guy that they want is trapped into a relationship with them, trapped into giving them a baby so that they're forced to get married, and then she divorces the guy after they get married, and then she takes all his money and leaves him homeless in the dirt. And it happens. And those are sad situations. Those are crimes. And they're not being prosecuted. I'm going to get to petition the government for a redress of grievances and discuss that concept in more detail. But we're messed up in regards to our bodies and sexuality. And that needs to stop. We need to correct things. We need to educate our youth so that they know about their bodies, so that they know about sexuality. Women need to understand that men are horny when they're teenagers and in their 20s, and they can't help it. We produce semen, offspring, or sperm 24/7, and it's at a rapid pace in the beginning. And we can't stop it. You know, we can't just say, I'm going to not think about it and it won't happen, because it doesn't work that way. It produces the product whether we're thinking about it or not. And in our youth, you know, we don't get much time until we've got a full load that needs to blow. And that's when uncomfortable, embarrassing moments occur. And it's gonna blow either in the nighttime or through other methods. And women need to understand that. Pink understands it. I was reminded of her song, You and Your Hand. But I think guys likewise, they need to understand a woman. And here in Utah, women don't apparently seem to understand about their own bodies. Women are on a cyclical basis that affects their emotional state. You know, it begins with having sexual desires, and then they get angry, and then they feel guilty, and that cycle goes month after month after month. And similar to a man, he goes through the same cycles as he fills up. Once he fills up and he's ready to blow, that's when the thoughts come in, and we can't stop it. And that's when guys want to do things. And when you have religion bearing down on you, trying to make you feel guilty, trying to make you feel shameful for what is a natural biological process, you know, that results in lots of problems and perverted, deviant behavior. So, yeah, there's probably more information than you wanted to hear, because, again, our culture is ashamed of our bodies and of sexuality. And so expression. Images of the human body do not corrupt our minds. Religion tells us that, and they pay their specific scientists to do a hasty, generalized, biased study that supports the religious viewpoint. And so the religions then quote the particular study, saying, oh, your eyes dilate when you look at the pictures. So how is that a bad thing? I performed a test when I heard that, and stood before my mirror and got a colored piece of paper, solid color, and I looked in the mirror without the paper and saw my eyes were normal, and then I put the colored piece of paper right up next to my eye so that I could look at the color in the mirror and then also see my eye's reaction. And guess what happened? It dilated. Wow! So it's not what's on the image, it's the coloring. That's it. Color dilates the pupils. So I was able to replicate their claim, as a scientist would and should, and discovered that their claim was misguiding. It was incorrect. It's color that dilates the pupils, not nudity. And so when people try to tell you that there are certain things that happen to our body, certain things that happen in the mind, remember, we are human beings. We're supposed to want to procreate our species. If we don't procreate, we can't continue on. And our species dies out, and we become extinct. And now I'm aware that there are depopulist agenda people out there who want to depopulate the human population. And so they come up with all sorts of excuses saying, oh, well, the environment. We need to protect the environment. We need to stop having more humans and let the environment, take over in a jungle condition. No. Or animals. We must kill off humans to allow animals to survive and thrive. So, even PBS, they were trying to pull off the stunt that, in order to stop global warming, we need to control the population. No! Urgh. These people are all hateful. Humans can live on the earth in mass numbers far beyond what we have today. But we don't need to destroy the earth and the resources on earth to do that. We can cultivate. We can domesticate. Even in the book of Genesis, it says, after God created man, he had them till the Garden of Eden. So you can see that that was the original intention for what we're supposed to do to Earth. We're not supposed to cause extinction of animal species and plant species. We're not supposed to decimate the forests and the jungles. We're supposed to cultivate them. We're supposed to domesticate them. Because in a jungle forest setting, humans can't survive because of the diseases that run wild and rampant that will kill humans. And so we need to tame the earth in order for us to live on it. And we can easily have hundreds of billions of people living on the earth and still have everything peaceful and harmonious, where plant growth, vegetation growth is thriving, and animal life is thriving. We can all live together on this planet in harmony. We don't need to kill off humans. But when religion gets into the mix, it messes everything up. And now we're reaping the consequences of the whirlwind with this Me Too movement. All because we do not treat people equally. There's a meme photo of a woman dressed in a swimsuit and in her underwear. When she's in the swimsuit, she's okay showing off her body to others in the public realm, but when she's in her underwear, all of a sudden she's embarrassed. And don't look, stay away, ah! I grew up with a mom who said that I could not leave the house unless I had a belt on my jeans. Because she said, quote, "You're naked, go get your belt." So, yeah. What do you do? And then we can talk about abortions on this matter, because, millions of sperm in one ejaculate for a man, and women have numerous eggs, far beyond the 42 kids that they are capable of having in a lifetime. And so, you know, if people are paranoid about a fetus uh, and wanting to preserve the rights of the fetus over the woman, it doesn't make any sense when millions of spermatozoids and eggs die in the course of a man and a woman's lifetime. The hypocrisy and the logic, or illogic rather, just is mind-boggling. And so people need to get over themselves. Study fallacies. Study logic. Learn to identify unsound arguments. And the point is not to adhere to them and embrace them, as we in our society are actually doing. You know, when we watch a movie, we're not supposed to embrace the behavior of the antagonist in the movie. The point of the movie is to demonstrate good versus evil, protagonist versus antagonist. We're supposed to emulate the protagonist, and thus the protagonist should be portrayed in a manner in which they demonstrate the good of humanity. And the antagonist is supposed to be the bad in humanity that we are supposed to avoid. And when you have people embracing groups for Sith Lords, and you have Sith Lord religions and cults that have sprung up since Star Wars. The Sith are the antagonists in the movie. The Jedi are the protagonists. And you don't see as many people wanting to be Jedi as you do people who want to be Sith Lords. And that's messed up. You're not supposed to want to be bad. It makes for a funny show, like in Austin Powers. You know, Dr. Evil. You know, in the black and white days, the bad guy, the antagonist, wore black hats and black clothes, black suits, and the antagonist wore the white suit and the white hat, so that we can know as an audience who was on whose side. And then you have satire, which throws all the rules out and is supposed to teach us through satire rather than the norms of protagonist versus antagonist. And so we don't need to fear our kids from seeing what the human body looks like. We don't need to fear teaching our kids about sex. We should be actively engaged in informing and educating our children so that they can make proper decisions in life, so that they know that if they like a girl, if a guy likes a girl, he needs to treat her properly despite his urges, and that he should make a commitment to that woman and be faithful to that commitment, and not try to lie and deceive and lure women into traps. And that also needs help from religions. You know, we can't have religions saying that the human body is evil and sex is evil And so therefore, don't do it. We need to be teaching correctly. And then when people violate their education, then that's a crime, and they need to be held accountable for it. So I don't know if I need to make this an 18 or over discussion or video. I don't think so. It shouldn't. But that's it for freedom of expression.